Welcome to Gray Overload, and this episode of Tony Tech Topics, we're going to go through some more news today. First, we're going to start off with some bad news. Neilman had this, and the 3% of Microsoft workforce are being laid off. Now, this is not a happy topic at all, and layoffs do happen. You know, it's about 6,000 workers across the world in different departments. Now, I have one. I really like to see where these layoffs are, and we'll kind of see what the performance is. Now, I think Microsoft's laying off. We're no stranger to something like this, but one of the things I like to see Microsoft do is put a focus in making better software. Maybe that is part of this layoff. Okay, it's a layoff. It's, something Microsoft does, and hopefully those people can get back on their feet. I'm just trying to see, does this help you get to where you're trying to go to, or is this trying to make it look good for financials? So I'll leave it at that. I got some more thoughts, but we got some more news to go through. So, Fortnite is trying to get more global on iOS, right? They've had the fight for Apple, and it's been a rocky ride for Fortnite here. While Tim Sweeney did point out, that there was Fortnite was going on the Apple Store, right? They have the third-party store in the EU, which I think Apple needs to open this up, and if they're not going to, the U.S. government's should actually step in and force their hand, especially here in the United States, because this is ridiculous. There should be third-party stores here. And Tim Sweeney was, going through, and we need to release a weekly Fortnite update with new content this Friday, and all Platinumers must update simultaneously. So we pulled the previous Fortnite version submitted to the Apple app review last Friday, and we have submitted a new version for review. And then he also pointed out that there's a Fortnite on Apple Store that is just all ads. So that was removed. But, while there's this review process for these apps, it's got to be, they say they're doing it for the good of the consumer, and then they post this. Tim Sweeney's completely right. It's just hypocrisy from Apple. They're worried about your privacy. Yeah. Yet they're having a Fortnite download that is purely all apps for Battle Royale, Epic Shoot, right? And it's all ads. That's all it is. No game. But let's take somebody else's intellectual property. Let's put it through the App Store, and let's approve it because that makes sense, and it's for your privacy. This is one of those things that Apple just doesn't get right at all. And I understand the reviews of games and apps in the store, like what it's supposed to do, but that only works if you actually review them and you don't have all these arbitrary things, and if you get it denied, you don't tell why it was denied. I got a huge problem with a lot of this stuff because I've seen how it works in a lot of different areas. I've seen a lot of developers complain, and here we are continuing down the path of not getting any better, but that's, kind of the way Apple does it, and a lot of other ones. But staying on the Epic topic, and the Epic Games launcher, according to Tim Sweeney, is clunky and is not is not perfect. So, but Steam has had a advantage because they were kind of the first ones to this. But if Epic can get a little bit more streamlined, I think that there's a opportunity here for Epic, especially on the developer side, where that split of revenue is a little bit different than on Steam. I think Steam takes like 30% or something, whereas Epic can be as low as 12. So if you're a developer, right, you like to have a whole bunch of people buying from Epic Game Store, and if they can get the Epic Game Store profitable, a lot of that is Fortnite is driven there. But if you can get it profitable overall and still drive more traffic and then streamline the UI, will help you get there. So hopefully they can, make it not so clunky, because they're even saying, some things with the downloads, right? It depends upon where you are and everything else, because there can be times I use the Epic games sometimes. They have, if you want to take a look at some games, They do have some free games that come out quite regularly. I'd highly recommend you take a look at that. Might get you into some of these other games that might be interesting. So that's kind of just a FYI that you can go and do. And let's stick on the free game train, which is Intel, right? We just had the i265K drop $100, and now video cards had a deal here where you get a free game with it, which was, what was the game? The Dying Light, the Beast. So that, and Civ 7. Okay, so they had games there, a game bundle, which is, I think, a good thing, right? They need to go after and kind of push this, and I think there's gaming bundles as well that come out for AMD products. AMD's been a bigger pusher of it, but of these game bundles. But I think finally seeing Amazon, Intel do this is a sign of, hey, we have to actually do something to be competitive. We cannot just sit still anymore. This is not going well for us, so let's try something different. We first dropped our processors, now we're doing this. I think that's a good path. I like to see more from Intel, but with the new CEO, they're starting to pick up. They're starting to see what they need to do to turn things around, and that you got to start someplace, right? And as much as I want to see them competitive today, I know it takes time for development, for software updates, if that's the case, if you need that, especially for the driver side stuff, as that keeps improving. There was a rumor out on video cards as well on the Intel Arc B580 having a dual GPU variant, and that one actually makes sense. Not so much for the gaming side, but if this rumor is true, and video cards did have it, but they had 48 gigs. Now, the 48 gigs would have been interesting for if you can use this at all for AI, right? And it's not going to be the fastest card in the world, but if you got enough RAM, you can then load that up with some models and hopefully let it just go off and compute. This might be a good option, especially if the B580 sales are not as enough that they need for these AIBs. If they can go through and get these cards out, even for AI use, and the AIBs can make some money on it, well worth it. You don't want AIBs sticking with their hands of buying something that didn't work. So, yeah, so I get it. Their GPUs do work. I actually like to test one out. I'm just not. If you're looking to game right now, I'm not going to recommend the Intel cards right now, and especially at the prices. They need to be at MSRP, and maybe we'll have a B770 or something, but don't hold your breath on that. That's not something I'm going to be like, oh yeah, this is something for sure coming, right? So Intel actually is killing off Deep Link. So this is from Intel, and video cards had this as well, and they were reaching out, pulling the plug on this technology, and they want to reach out to let you know that a change regarding Intel Deep Link feature. Deep Link is no longer actively maintained and will no longer receiving future updates, meaning that there will be no changes to features regarding their current functional status. So if you are somebody that uses this, maybe you can, I don't know how much of this is opened up or open source, because that would have been a cool thing to do. But yeah, that would have been really cool to do, is just say, hey, we're out of this, here it is, we're open sourcing it, go have fun. I think that would have been a good move by Intel, but they did not do that. And yeah, just other rumors on Intel and AMD is about they're working on their next gen stuff. So that's actually Intel's graphics. We're looking at RDNA, right? Okay, let's put this Intel first, and then AMD. We'll jump into AMD next. Intel, their Celestial is next, and we know that that's coming. And then there's Druid after it, and there's been some leaks that show that it's been coming here. It's going to be coming at some point, which is, somebody spotted the architecture. That's good, right? So they're still working at it. I'm impressed. Hopefully, with the new CEO, they're gonna stick to it. I don't know what's all gonna get cut yet. I think it's still a little bit early, but if you are, a lot of these, since Linux is open source and there's open source libraries and stuff for patches, you kind of get some of these things early because they have to put release notes in there. I mean, they need to put release notes. I hate it when companies don't put what this bug fixed. So at least they're doing that. And having even a somewhat coded message is can be decoded. So that's pretty cool. AMD's also doing the same thing, right? The rumor mill, our Navi 5, RDM5, UDNA, whatever you want to call it. That's also coming at some point. So that's pretty cool. We'll see what AMD all does here. Now, the 9600 or 9600, the 9060 XT is coming out here soon, I believe, and leakers are, what is it, 188, and video cards had this as well, but 188 saying that it will actually have a higher clock than the 9070. So that is, the game clock will be higher. That is interesting to see now. Could be anything, right? It's a different die. So who knows exactly how that was all configured, but that could be part of it. And also AMD could be just saying where stuff has to be, you know, stacked up in. I'd like to see fully unlocked graphics cards, AMD. But we'll see where that all goes in the future. So AMD has had some more leaks out. I know Zen 7 stuff. Moore's Law is Dead had some great stuff down there. I mean, we're not even to Zen 6 yet. He's already getting some Zen 7 stuff. And Zen 6, should be out, late this year, first half next year, someplace in there. That's where I hope it kind of hits. But, they even got Medusa Point where they're showing off that it's going to have a total 12 cores, I think, or what, 12 cores or 22 cores. Yeah, it's a Zen 6 APU. Okay, yeah, Medusa Point is Zen 6 APU. I'm refreshing myself. And you're going to have like 12 classic, then a 4 classic, 4 dense, and 2 low power. That could be a fun little processor to play with. I think AMD is finally getting that they do need to go with a higher core count, and they should. And if they do that, that'll be kind of interesting to see how that translates to market share, especially the mobile side, because that's where one area where Intel it can go after them because they have these efficiency cores with their performance cores, and they can create a processor with a little bit more core count in a laptop form factor. And if it can deliver pretty well on these workloads where people have an advantage to it, then AMD having that too can maybe help keep gaining them in that market share. Because Mercury Research did some release their data on that, and AMD has been growing market share, so that is good. Now, there is a new EPYC CPU. This is AM5, and so the AM5 has a whole enterprise. Some of the Threadripper stuff the drivers kind of have waned a little bit, right? You have EPYC, which has all the cores. You have Threadripper, which has all the codes, which is at that workstation. It is certified for certain things. Lenovo's had some good machines, but it also is specific to that. And then you have AM5, where a lot of people are on that. You can be testing it, and it's pretty well rock solid from what I've seen and played with here. And their new EPYC is going to be on the AM5, which, same CCDs and stuff like that. This is one of the great things about chiplets is that you can make that architecture and those chiplets go across a whole spectrum of devices, and I love that modularity. But the 4005, their Grotto is now released to this. You're going to be able to have 6 to 16 Zen 5 cores or on this AM5 platform. Good to see AMD doing something like this. I think it's, for people that want a box like this, it makes perfect sense. Now, these CPUs are going to be maybe a little bit more expensive than just an off-the-shelf Ryzen, but you're also paying for that EPYC level name, right? If you're doing an enterprise and this is something you want in, in a cloud server and stuff like 1U, 2U stuff, makes perfect sense. And I think that you can have a great success with it. So some more rumor news. Video cards had this. They're going to be, and I think we've known this for a while, which is 12 core CCDs for Zen 6. And some of the core counts are really going up there. So Zen 6C, we'll start with that. That's their compact architecture, so they're denser cores. That's going to be 256 cores, 512 threads. Man, that is going to be one just packed device. That's pretty cool. AMD just throwing out cores at stuff, being able to solve problems, and this is going to be, people are going to want this, right? This is going to be in the server side area, and I can see areas where this makes a lot of sense. And then you also got the other side, which is 96 Zen 6 cores, and that's going to be, this is just regular Zen 6, so your non dense cores, 192 threads. With AI taking off and everything else, right, you're going to need not just GPUs, not just NPUs, and you're also going to need CPUs, right? They work together, and yeah, CPU is a more general platform, and as you pack more of these cores and throw more stuff at it, you're going to need, more cores for different things, and, I can see having these performance cores in a multitude of areas, especially if people run simulations on servers and stuff. This makes a lot of sense, and AMD is trying to deliver on that, and I think that's one area where AMD's done a really good job with lately, is that they've been able to push in this area of delivering on this, where other company, they can deliver in this CPU, where if you give an ARM and everything else, ARM CPU, which they deliver in certain markets, right? Amazon has some, but AMD can kind of deliver that full stack to you. Hey, you need a GPU. Hey, you need this. That all goes through. I think Nvidia is trying to do that too with their Gracemont stuff, and that's all not just Gracemont. What else is it? What do they call it? I'm blanking on the name right now of their Project Digits. That's what they're trying to do with Project Digits. And if they can deliver that, right, your full stack for delivering something to the user all the time and for everything. And that will then, can you then make something, whatever it is? I want a dense CPU with some of your GPUs and your FPGAs and NPUs to be delivered and built in the system like this, delivered to me, and we just hook up the racks. Can you do something like that? I see that's where a lot of this is going, and we'll see how it all comes to fruition. But yeah, it's kind of interesting here. So uh, that's pretty cool stuff. What's going on here? That I see the future's coming. So jump back to Intel, because I missed this in my I thought I had my tabs in order, but I guess not. So Intel says the upcoming uh, Fabs, so the upcoming 18 and 14A, are going to be have some customer commitments, which is good. They're going to have something other than Intel. I was saying this in another video I did, that I think, Intel having a being able to deliver all their products from their fabs and then having others jump in and build, I think will give them a huge benefit. I think it was the AMD video I just did, right? The CEO said that they want to be able to have profitability by sometime in 2027, or break even, but you're probably looking at least to have some profit to break even there, going into 2028. And if they can do that, I think that they have a little bit more bandwidth to go through, right? Everyone's still going to TSMC right now. Granted, there's different nodes and stuff, but you have Nvidia, AMD, Apple, Intel for even some stuff is going to TSMC. If Intel can push that all back in them, you look at AMD's market share right at 20 some percent, high 20 percentage. As AMD gets up, right, they have to grow that. That's so much more chips each time they grow their market share, right? That they have to produce. That means there's more silicon from TSMC being manufactured, and while you got everyone competing and you're anticipating growth in this, Intel will have, their own fabs to do that, that's where they have a benefit, and maybe they can, you know, see what maybe other people will jump in and use it too. But at least they can fill their fabs as long as they're selling and as long as they have a competitive product. They're going to be able to fill that up. I think that that's going to do a lot of good for the consumer, is to have enough product on shelves overall, and we won't get out of all these shortages we have now. So one thing I was, going through and I saw in WCCF Tech was, this headline here is not one that you want to be like, oh, this is good. So WCCF Tech put it this way: Steam did not suffer a security breach, and you don't need to change your password, says Valve. Yeah, that's a great way to. I think I woke up and I opened this article. I'm like, oh my goodness, that's not okay. I should go change my password. When somebody says that you shouldn't go change your password, you should go change your password no matter what, right? That's just one of those things where, yeah, I guess there was reports that Steam was suffering a security breach according to reports, and Valve was like, hey, you know what? Did not breach any of the Steam systems, so you don't have to change your password. And that's good, right? And I'm sure Steam's been attacked for years and years and years, and this is just one of those things where you they got to prevent against it, and they saw it, but it's good to not see that they've been hacked or something. So um, Nvidia is looking to have a global headquarters in Taiwan. Now this is an interesting one. Now they'll still be a U.S. company from everything I understand, but their overseas headquarters will be located in Taiwan. So that's pretty interesting, right? You get closer to TSMC. It's interesting that TSMC is so willing to work so close. I wonder how that relationship was repaired so well. uh, and the reason why I say that, right, is Nvidia went to Samsung for some chips to be manufactured, and granted, it didn't go the best. They had a competitive product. AMD was to close the gap there, but with Samsung 8 nanometer, but it wasn't as good as the TSMC counterpart at that time. So I wonder what Nvidia had to do to sweeten the pot and be like, yeah, we like you better. We're gonna even build our headquarters here. That's one of those things I think. And right after I did the video last week, I was going through some more of the news, and the GeForce drivers got updated. So Game Writer drivers are updated. You got some new game stuff and new DLSS optimized settings, stuff like that. So more bug fixes and general fixes overall. But that's something I wanted to point out, because keeping track of the drivers, making sure you're on top of that, is something that is important. Now, I was watching a Jay's 2 cents video this week about the 14900K, and about how a friend of a friend or somebody that that knew Jay enough, right, and said, I'm having a problem with my computer. 14900K degraded. If you have a 13th, 14th gen, make sure you're updating your BIOS. If we can get that out to as many people to prevent something like that, definitely something happening. But I was also then watching a Tech Yes City video, which this is something that we have seen in the news for quite often. I don't think it's getting enough attention from AMD or ASRock, which is CPUs dying and gray marks on CPUs and stuff like this, mostly on ASRock motherboards. And Tech Yes City was monitoring some voltages, and it looks like that you have an issue with some of the SoC Uncore voltage there, which is not good, or that, yeah, the CPU SoC voltage, right? He was playing with the Uncore OC mode enabled, just to get the different voltages, and then just different boards, different CPUs. And this is one of those things where I wish that there was more on this, right? This is one of those things that I'm looking at, using this 7800X3D, which, this is mostly with the 9000 series. But I'm also maybe want to build another little gaming rig here. I know we'll see if my brother wants a computer built or something like that. And I'm looking at this, I'm like, well, I'm probably going to AM5 for most of these builds because that is, where it's at right now. Intel just doesn't have anything. We'll see. I may do an Intel one depending upon what I can get for the price of how I'm going to configure this build. But um, overall, for my main desktop, probably going AM5 for that. Maybe use the 7800 until I upgrade that to maybe a 16 core or even Zen 6. But am I going to go with an ASRock board? And at this point, I'm not. I just don't want to chance it with that until we come out with something that says, hey, this is all fixed. So hopefully that gets there. But where are we at? Let's talk about some gaming here because I've rambled on long enough, and I want to touch on some of the gaming stuff. So they've came out, Rockstar, Take Two, the boxes, uh, bosses have came out and they were talking about why it was delayed, and I don't like when they say that they're wanting to seek perfection because guess what? If you delay a game now, I'm okay if you delay the game and you still have some issues when it's released, but we were delaying it and do it, but we wanted to iron out all the major bugs to make it playable and make sure bugs are not interfering with your experience. I'm fine with that. But when you say that we're going to seek perfection, oh man, you better make sure that that game is rock solid. Maybe that's why the PC version will be later, where consoles you got a little bit more control. So maybe this is it, but that always gets me a little iffy. Yeah, it's perfection. Yeah, perfection, right? So they also did say that they were only started the Grand Theft Auto 6 in 2020. So they've only been working on it for a few years. Impressive there. So another gaming news here is we have the next gen Xbox. Now, we don't know what this will actually be, but there was a job posting um, at Qualcomm for Xbox. Now, does this have anything to do with Xbox, or does this just have to be or Xbox products, right? They said Xbox products, or does this have to be with in regards to gaming on the on the Snapdragon device, as in the Xbox, games. The Xbox games just have to work on that device, that Snapdragon device, and they need to get these drivers or devices all working on. Now, the job postings are job postings, right? They have it in different areas, and I'm going to take this as, they want to support the sell and activities for next generation Surface and Xbox games products built on Snapdragon. Well, I take that as okay, you're trying to sell it, but you got to have some of the stuff on the other side of this, or it's just not going to make sense. There has been a little return rate on these processor or on these devices right now in the Surface area, and they've made the Surface kind of be like, you know. They've tried to make Copilot the reason to buy some of these devices, and don't software restrict hardware to make that to be the device to buy. Let the device speak for itself. Because if you have to software restrict, my thought is that unless you want to be an early adopter and tinker, you're not getting that device. So I'm fine with this. I think as Microsoft has made moves here, they've kind of signaled that the Xbox console is, while we may have one, we're going to not really, we're going to make sure that our games are selling everywhere. So I think PC is the way to go, and I think that might be get rid of my Xbox and go to a PC that's connected to my TV. I think that's the next step, but that's kind of how I see this going. And if I'm going with an ARM device, I let me, have a Nvidia one or an AMD one with their GPUs. I'm kind of going that route. Uh, I know Microsoft's got this whole thing with Qualcomm. I'm just looking at the GPU performance. Okay, let me go someplace else. So let's jump in. Bungie is had a little issue here, and they've had an issue a few times where they've been taking assets or art assets that are close to other artists without permission. And I guess now they're doing a full investigation. This guy, while he makes the art, or made art, Bungie for this is a marathon, the game marathon, and Bungie kind of took all this art from that guy and confirmed that they did it, which is I think pretty big now. The guy's just he's venting online, right? He should. He created a lot of it, and they took it right without permission. At least reach out and contact. I think that's one of the big things. So we'll see where this kind of comes from it. But good that something is starting to. Bungie's looking at it because this isn't the first time it has happened. So yeah, not the first time. And then we're gonna get more TV shows on games. It looks like there's gonna be a Civil War, the campaign, or the battles. TV. I did this backwards. Um, Battlefield. I read this backwards. It happens. Late night trying to get this done here, but what we're trying to say is that the campaign in Battlefield 6, which I'm a much bigger campaign game player than I am online, and it looks like it's being inspired by a lot of different things. Their Lioness and Civil War films. So that's pretty cool. We'll see where this goes. Maybe this is one where I'm going to have to get again and play it, Battlefield 6. So it'd be fun, but I want to end on the gaming news here. I want to thank you guys so much for watching Gray Overload and helping this channel grow. I really do appreciate it. I'm going to try to get some more content out this week. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, hit the bell icon as it really does help in my channel. And until next time, God bless.